All right. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to the Decisions Lunch and Learn. While we wait for people to start filtering in, we can, start taking a look at whatever questions we already have. I can see that we have a hand raised already. I'm going to go ahead and allow you to talk. And
Uh,
what question do you have today?
Hi, Curtis. So, if we are taking inputs from the user, and if it's a flow, I want to do the flow validation, not the form validation. So, if I'm taking the inputs from the user, and I'm mimicking through the postman or the external UI. So if I'm giving any invalid output input, so in that case I should be able, the user should be able to see that the input is wrong there itself, and he should be able to correct there itself.
So you're using Postman to call a flow, and you want
Uh,
the flow once it receives those inputs to correct the input so that the flow is able to run properly?
yes.
Sure, that's a really interesting use case. What kind of inputs are we working with here? Like, so if I were to go,
uh,
well, first of all, can you see my screen?
yeah.
Perfect.
uh,
Okay, so what kind of inputs are we working with?
you can give one input as like final status code is equal to y.
Okay, let's see here. So are they all going to be string values or?
It will be a string value, and you can give one as date as well.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And then from here, so I guess the most important question, right, is in your flow, I guess are the issues that you're trying to account for formatting issues, like if someone submits the date improperly, or are you trying to do something more advanced with maybe the string that's being submitted?
See, if you have given the two inputs, right?
Hmm.
So after in the flow, you can add one more step of report.
Okay. You said, oh, you want to run a report?
Yeah. 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 Just connect that to the end.
Hmm.
Also, if yeah, if you'll debug here, then you will get two inputs, right? Say string one and date one.
Correct. Hmm.
Then if I want to set here like the string should be y only. I shouldn't be like the app should not accept any other value than y. If I'm entering any other string rather than y, then it should show me here itself that you are giving the wrong input.
Gotcha. Okay. So what we can do, right, is because I mean, if so we're going to accept that call, right? If you submit a Postman call, you can send, whatever string values you want into a Postman call. But then once we receive that information, right, we could then run some rules that evaluate the string. And then from there, based off the evaluation, we could then return a response that says, your entered information is invalid, please correct and resubmit, for example. would
So
that would that work for you, or?
yes, yeah, you can like give it a try. So yesterday I had talk with Matt. So he showed me one way by which he added the end form session after a rule,
Hmm.
and he attached the false situation to the end form session. So that's not working in my case because it is giving me the error after debugging, not while in the front page. Like if I use the external UI, I won't be able to see the error, right?
Okay, so you're only seeing this. So if you were to run this through debugger on your UI, it would succeed, but it's failing if you go through Postman.
Yes.
Interesting. Okay, and I'm curious. Your Postman response. What error status are you getting? Is it like for example, is it a 200 response? Is it a 404? A 600? What kind of response are you getting?
I haven't tried that by using the postman yet, so that's what I'm asking you. How can I do that?
Okay, so you want to learn how to run it from Postman?
Yeah, yeah.
Sure. Okay, so we can certainly make that happen. So let's go ahead and let me get Postman spun up on my computer real quick. Give me just one moment. We'll make sure this is up and running appropriately. Okay, so I'm actually going to show you just an example flow that I have, and then you can tell me, if you have any other questions about what it is that you're looking at. So in the environment that we're currently in, let's go ahead. We'll close out of this for now. We'll jump over to an example flow that we've worked on in the past. So from here, right? Like this is a kind of a typical workflow view. On your top right-hand corner, you should have the ability to publish it as an API service, right? And that's what we're going to want to start with.
Yes.
So here we could call it an API service. We'll say that we're going to utilize JSON. And then from here, you should be able to view your integrations page. Mhm. Now, once this gets loaded, you have a couple more questions to answer before you have all the information that you'll need to run this. The first is how you want to authenticate your request, right? Are you going to log in with your credentials? Are you going to use a guest account? Or are you going to use a named session that you created in Decisions? All of them are viable. For now, we'll go ahead and we'll utilize, this admin session. Okay. Now you can see here that I've received both a get format as well as a post format. And then with the information you see here, you just have to start to transcribe it, exactly as you see it here into Postman, right? So this is a Postman call for the flow that we're looking at currently. You can see, let's start. So this is just, copied directly from Decisions. You're going to have your domain, your base URL, followed by the flow ID, right? With a REST API in there. And then from here, you can specify your parameters. Here, we specified that session ID, for example. We don't have to use it, but if we're going to go for the session ID, I would enable this. And then here, I'm just taking this body, from these parameters here. Now, it's important, or go ahead. What's your question?
I just want like you to run that flow using that link.
Okay. So for example, you want me to hit send here?
Yes.
Sure. All right, so all I'm going to receive back currently is my flow tracking ID, and this will actually launch the flow.
Okay.
Let's go ahead and. So this flow actually runs through my phone. So let me go ahead and hold this up for us. Give me just one more moment. I'm going to go ahead. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to send one more request. But for the purposes of this, I'm actually going to share my cell phone screen because that's what this flow is running towards. So let me do this. Can you see my new screen?
Not yet.
Let's see here.
Yeah, this is visible. The postman is visible.
Let's give this a shot again.
Yeah, now it is visible.
Let's see here. So can you currently see my text message inbox?
No.
Perfect. All right. I can see it on my end. Can you see it as well?
Yeah.
All right. So for this particular flow, when I run this Postman call, it's going to send me a new link, and I'm going to go ahead and open the call in my link. So if I go
Okay.
ahead, I'll hit send. I just hit send or send in Postman and give it about a minute or so, and I should receive a new link.
Okay.
There we go. So there's our new message. If I go ahead and click on this, it'll actually navigate me to the flow, right? So from here, I would have the ability to, start navigating through my process. I could come and I could, for example, I can come in here and I could upload a driver's license, for example. Right. So this allows me. So even though I started the call in Postman, I'm actually navigating through the flow, in Decisions, in this case, via my cell phone. So is there something more specific that you want to see in regards to running a flow from Postman?
No, that's it, I guess.
Okay. Is there anything else? I mean, is there any questions you have about the formatting of the call, or more specifically, what's not working for you on your end?
No, thanks. That's it.
Okay, perfect. Well, I hope that helped.
Yeah, thanks, Curtis.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll put that aside for now, and let me go ahead and share my main screen again. Perfect. All right, so hopefully that was helpful. While we're here, has anyone else have any questions or something they'd like to see while we're waiting for other questions to flow in? Okay, so while we wait for some questions to come up, and since I already have this environment pulled up, this might be a good opportunity for us to discuss what it looks like to make a mobile accessible flow, right? So if you were here and you saw the quick demonstration that we did for Postman there, it's quite plausible to build flows that are meant to be run in cell phones from Decisions. And with that in mind, there are a couple of hurdles that you might have to cross between building something that's for a desktop application versus building something that's intended to be run from a mobile device. So the first hurdle that you're going to end up crossing the majority of the time is it's relatively common, when we're working in Decisions, that we want to show images, right? On the example flow that you just saw there, we had a picture, right? We submitted a driver's license, and then we rendered that photo on the form as well. If you're intending this to work on a mobile device, it's actually not as straightforward as using your image, right? So for example, typically, if this was supposed to be a desktop application, I would go ahead and I would pull up an image, right? And then based off this image, I would provide it a data name. And then, after someone attaches a file or something along those lines, that image would be rendered. However, that will not work out of the box if someone were to pull up that image, via Safari or via Google Chrome on their phone. There's actually a workaround step that you need to do in between. So from here, we're actually going to go look at a data flow that's going to convert an image to make it accessible via cell phone. So the first thing you do is that, whenever you attach an image in Decisions, right, whether it's coming from a document attachment or some other, you've submitted the picture into the flow inputs, for example, you're going to get back a file data, right, for that particular object. That's going to include a string, or basically a bytes data type, right? So if I were to go in here and look at your flow, it's going to look something like this. I'll have a file data, and then part of that file data is going to include this byte array. And you can take a byte array in decisions and run it through this out of the box step to convert bytes to base 64. And the reason that this is helpful is that if you want to render an image for a mobile device, you basically have to do it in an HTML section. And so with an HTML section, I could say, okay, well, I want my image to display with a block. I want this to be my width and height. But more importantly, instead of attaching a link, normally you would attach a link here, you can actually specify how you want that image to be rendered. So we could say, okay, well, I'm going to give you data of an image in that base 64. And then I can attach those converted bytes to string from that previous step. And so all you really need to do is add that HTML section. And now on your mobile devices, right, those images will be able to render in real time as your users navigate through a flow. And I know that that's not the most common use case. However, we are seeing more and more of our customers, of our clients, expect to be able to run through complete and robust workflows, via their mobile devices. So with what I just showed, does anyone have any questions about how to interact with pictures over a mobile device, or any other questions that might relate to mobile workflows in decisions? Nope, and that's perfectly fine. So I see, Josh, I see that you're here in attendance today. Is there anything specific that you came to see, or you're just, interested in the other questions that other clients are coming to us with?
I'm unmuted. Actually, yeah. So I was interested in what other clients were going through, but also I am struggling to figure out what's it called? A validation rule flow.
Okay.
Yep, I have a combo box on a form, and depending on what's selected in the combo box, I'm looking to populate a text box based on the selection of the combo box. And yeah, I've been playing around with data.
Okay, that makes sense.
Flows. Yep.
Sure. So let me go ahead and create kind of a simple form that might, kind of represent what you're trying to accomplish. So here we have a sample combo box. We'll call it something simple along those lines. Okay, so we have a sample dropdown. And for your dropdown, is your type still a string, or do you have a custom data type there?
There's strings, just static inputs. Yes, no.
Okay. Yeah. So we'll do static input, and again, we'll just utilize yes and no. And then from here, with that information, let me go ahead and make sure that I go ahead and drag a button. Let's see here. We have we'll call this our submit button. Perfect. And then from here, you're trying to populate that information, or you're trying to take the selected value in a dropdown and have it populate a text box.
See, yeah, for example, if the selection is yes, then the text box just says checked, for example. And actually, I had multiple drop downs. I had 3 drop downs on a left column, and on the right, I had the text boxes. And there's a text box for each drop down. And I guess to get in more detail, the drop down represents it's a checklist, and I need to know if a file was approved or not, yes or no.
Okay.
So yeah, so the text box, if the selection is yes, then the text box would say done. If the selection is no, then I want to populate the name of the file in that box.
The name of the name of the file that's been.
Yeah, so I had a third column to the left of the drop down. Yeah, yeah, it's, oh, there you go. Yeah, to the left of the drop down, I just had a label like we could do ABC. It's just the name of the file.
So here they can, upload a file, for example. And then if it's no, then we want to display the name of that file in the text box.
Right.
Perfect. So we'll call this our perfect. So just so I understand everything, we're going to drag and drop a file here. And then from here on that drop down, they can select either yes or no. If it
Yeah.
says yes, pretty straightforward. We're going to go ahead and populate this text box with a string value of checked. And if it says no, we're going to go ahead and populate this text box with a value of the file name itself.
Correct. Yeah.
Awesome. All right. So let's kind of take a look at this functionality. So in your particular use case, where is the process breaking down? Does it work if you say yes, but not if you say no? Or is it not working for any of the values for the text box?
Yeah, I had it populate. It said decisions.form component. I was trying to configure. I kind of got stuck on the mapping.
Sure.
Mapping of pulling the file name into the text box.
Gotcha. Okay. So let's start with that, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to create a flow, and it's going to be a data flow.
Okay.
We're going to say we want to, populate text box. And you can go in order. I typically, I'll look at my triggers first just to make sure I understand the process. So for us, right, we're going to say if we have our sample drop down, whenever the selection changes, I want to go ahead and run this flow.
Great.
And we're not going to run it at startup, and it is blocking. All of that makes sense. So now let's take a look at our flow. We'll go ahead and create a new flow. And we'll say that this is going to, populate text box. Now from here, there's basically two sets of information that you're going to need, right? You're going to basically need the value of the dropdown, as well as the file data, right? The submitted file. And this should be file data here. Is that what you have already?
Yep. Perfect. I'm there.
Go ahead and we'll hit save here. And now based off the value of that dropdown, right, we're going to populate, a backend string. So what I like to do, and this isn't required, there's other ways that you could accomplish this, but I like to do a create data step. And at this create data step, I'm going to call this my future output string. This way, I have something that I can map to, right? Because you can't, for example, run a rule and then map it to the end step before you get there, right?
Interesting. I had started just with output string. Is that what would be the difference? I had output string, string match, and then set control value. And yeah, so what would be the difference with create data? Just so I understand that.
So there's
what I was doing wasn't working, so maybe I gotta go with create data.
Yeah, and also for example, right? You said on your output right now, your output to that flow is just output string, right? And that's great. But for example, if I were to come here and let's say that I do a rule that says we're going to go string, and we're going to say go. So we're going to have a rule, and we're going to say, does the value from our drop down, does it equal yes? And if it equals yes, we'll go down the true path. And if it equals no, we're going to go down the false path. Now, because there's two paths, right? There's essentially going to be two values that you're trying to map to a single output, right? And because I come from a background with programming, so for me it was always more natural to have an instantiated value that I could write back to, so that my output string will always be a single value, right? So what we're going to do here, we could do something like this. We'll have a mapping step on top and a mapping step on the bottom. And then both of these will map to my end step. And my end step, no matter which path we take, it's always going to be that future output string that we created here. And then on my mapping steps, right, as an output to this, right? So if you were to come here, and let's say that this was any other step, let's say that you were using a create data step to populate that information. Now from here, like any other step in decisions, I can now map my output, right? But because I haven't gotten to the end of the flow yet, I can't come to like a create data step here and map my output to my end step, right? So then you get into this weird kind of situation where you have two values, one on your true path and one on your false path. And depending on which path you go to, you want to write it to a data point that you can't reach yet, right? And there is a way to do that. I've always thought it was cleaner to first just create a value at the beginning that I can map back to, right? So now from my mapping step, I could say, okay, well, let's see here. Go ahead, we'll save this real quick. And then we'll jump back in. If we look at my mapping step, you can see here that I have as an input here, my future output string, right? So now without even, because it already exists here, I can say, okay, well, for this value, it's going to be a constant. And if we go down the true path, it's just going to equal done, right? But if we go down our false path, that future output string that we created here, we're going to have this set to equal part of our file data. So you can go to our uploaded file, we'll find our file name and select our file name. So now both of our mapping steps map back to the value that we created here, right? Because we're able to map to it because it already came earlier in the flow. So that now when I get to my end step, you can see that there's no dynamic mapping that needs to take place here. It's just always going to be the output string that I defined here in this create data step. So there are multiple ways to accomplish this. Myself personally, I've always found this to kind of be an intuitive approach to mapping things to an input flow before you get there. Do you have any questions about what we've done so far so we can take a look at it before we jump back into the form?
No, I
Perfect.
think I'm following you. Yep.
So from here, we'll go ahead and we will close and save. And now
it was a statement rule, right?
yeah, so it's actually, it could be a statement rule. This is actually an out of the box rule that's available in decisions. So if you were to go up to your search and just type in string equals,
Here it is. Yep.
it's just out of the box. So you could make your own statement rule to accomplish this. But if it's just a string comparison, I'll usually just use the out of the box one. Either of them, would do the trick for you.
Okay, gotcha. Thanks.
So from here, we'll go ahead and we'll update our inputs and we'll say, okay, so for our uploaded file, we're going to take it from a form component and we're going to take it from that uploaded file. We do not want to run this rule whenever the value changes, right? We're only going to run this whenever our dropdown changes. So we'll uncheck that run on value changed. And then we'll do the same thing for our value of the dropdown. Our value of the dropdown will come from here and we'll call this our sample dropdown. For this one, we will actually run it on value changed. Now, the last piece of this, right, is that we need to map our flow output. So from here, we'll say, okay, I'll come here. I'm going to grab this data name. And I'm going to go ahead and just make it one character or one string for now. We'll come back to the rule that we're building. And for our flow output, we're going to go ahead and we're going to update it here. And just like that, we've specified what this is going to target. We already have our trigger selected. So now, we can go ahead and we can test. We'll go ahead and we'll put our submit towards the end. Let me go ahead and just make a quick text file. Okay. And for now, we're not going to know the answer to our dropdown before we come into the form. So we'll just say ignore for now. And let's go ahead and run this. So once we get here, we have the option to choose our file. I'll go find a simple text file on my desktop. And then here, if I come here and I say yes, this should say done. However, if I say no, it should return that file name of LL text. And then you could, of course, do that for your subsequent drop-down boxes.
Mhm. Would each drop-down box require its own data flow?
So it would work. Okay, so let me make sure I answer this specifically because I don't want to lead you astray.
Thanks.
So from our form,
Mhm.
let's go ahead and open up our properties here. Each drop-down box in your use case would require its own data flow, but the flow that it uses could be the same. Does that make sense, right? So you could use this populate text box for a different drop down in different text box. You could use that same flow, but it would need its own data flow, right? So what that would look like for you is that we'd come into our data flows and we'd say add, and we're going to call this our populate text box 2. But the flow itself could remain the same. So you'd go to pick existing, you'd say populate text box. And now, your flow inputs would just have to be that new uploaded file, that other drop down, and then you'd map your flow output to your other text box, right? So the flow can stay the same, but just to make sure that your mappings are different, you would have to create a new data flow for it.
Makes sense.
Great. Yeah. So, I mean, or hopefully you're able to work alongside me. Were you actually able to work on it while we were going through this, or?
Yeah, I started working on it. And yeah, but then I was following along, but yeah, I'll work on this after the video and yeah, get it done.
Great. Yeah. Let us know how it goes.
Appreciate it.
No problem. And then did you have any other questions?
No, that was it.
No problem.
I was gonna ask, is the recording gonna be released today or?
For that, I will have to defer to Sabrina. Sabrina, do you know,
Okay.
will this actually be available today? And Sabrina, you're muted if you're trying to answer the question.
Sorry about that. Yes, it will be uploaded today.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
Perfect. And then, so Josh, if you don't have any other questions, we'll open up the floor for any other questions that might have come up while we were working through that other issue.
Yeah, appreciate your help.
Yeah, anytime. Let's see, and I don't want to call anyone out, in case you're shy. However, Jeff, I see that you're on the call. Do you have any questions or anything that you came in here specifically to see today? Let's see here. Okay, so we have a flow that's exporting a CSV file. So it should remain backwards compatible.
I just thought I'd throw that question out there. It might be something I need a session about, but I can see the step, what does it say? Save data to file.
Mm-hmm.
And I can see that the file has a size like so many kilobytes, but when I download that through the download form, it's coming out with a blank file. So I didn't know if maybe there was something that might have changed.
No, nothing specifically. Let's see here. So, and you said that you're currently in 6.18.
Yeah.
All right, so let's take a look. I believe I think this is actually version 7. Okay, so yeah, I am working in 7.6 right now. Let's see here. So how is the CSV being created? Like, is someone attaching the CSV and then you're exporting it at the end of the flow? Or are you actually building the CSV through some sort of flow logic?
Building the CSV with steps to add data rows and columns.
Okay, so are you, let's see here.
So there's a create new Excel file step,
Mhm.
and then there's set values in row I'm using.
So we're using our create new Excel file. And then from here, we are setting our values. I think if we go down to our integration folder and we jump into our internal services, we'll actually find, yeah, we'll find our Excel service here. So CSV create, let's just do this. And so from here, you have a create new Excel, and then by some logic, you're doing a set values in row.
Yeah.
Now, okay, so have you set your file type to be the CSV, or do you have it auto selected?
I have it was set to CSV because at the end, after the set values, I'm doing update file with data, which I think is just the step you need to add to. I'm not
So,
sure
okay. So
and then after that, I was doing a convert Excel to CSV.
gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
So are you doing the convert Excel to CSV towards the end, or are you creating a new Excel file, converting to CSV here, and then doing your set values in row?
At the very end, right before the form.
So, and this is not an issue I've come across before, but I am curious about that work order when it comes to version 6. So what I would be interested in doing. And so let me go ahead and get rid of this form for now. So without any of the mappings done right now, what I have here is more or less representative of your flow, where we have a create new Excel file. We're setting the values in rows, and then we're converting that Excel to CSV at the very end.
Yeah, and right before the convert Excel to CSV, I have a step called update file with data.
Sure. Yep. Yeah.
Which someone told me that just, I don't know exactly what that does, but
yeah. So it's actually, so when you set the values on an Excel spreadsheet or a CSV in this case, it doesn't, it basically, it updates the file that exists in the flow, but it would not make a change to the file that's actually created and downloadable, right? So when you
Okay.
go to when you do that update file with data, it's basically a commit step. It takes all the changes you've made and then commits them.
Okay.
So just kind of a nuanced step that you end up having to use to do flows like this. So I think and so I think we can actually go ahead. I mean, we don't have a ton of questions right now. So I mean, while we're here, we still have 20 or so minutes. We can probably build out something pretty close to what you're trying to accomplish and see what that looks like for us here, if you don't mind.
Yeah, I mean, if you just want to throw in a couple values, that should mimic what I'm doing.
Let's do this here. Let's see here. Okay, and then what are you doing to, are you downloading your file as file data, or are you downloading your file as file reference?
So the step I'm using to download the form is a download file form.
So you can see here the download file form itself takes a file reference,
Okay.
But your create new Excel file is going to create a file data output. And I believe that this would still be the same in version 6. Can you see that there on your flow?
Yeah, I'm looking at my download file form, and it says that it takes a file data.
Oh, perfect. Yeah. So you can actually go to this form here, and you do have the ability to change it from file reference to file data. I just wanted to make sure that they matched on your flow.
Okay.
Okay. So now we'll do this as a file data. Let's see our new Excel file. Let's see here. We'll do a constant value for that and ignore it. And then our file name, we'll call this our test value. In fact, I don't know why I'm doing this in the merge plain text editor. We'll do it this way so we can edit it quicker. Okay, so here we've created a new Excel file. Let's go ahead and set the values in row 1. Our input file, of course, is going to be our newly created Excel file. Our worksheet number, we can ignore for the purposes of what we're doing here. So our row starting at 0. I'm sure you have some sort of loop in place, but we'll go ahead. We'll say this is going to be for row 0. This will be for column 1. And let's go ahead and build our array. So this could be, you know, we're not going to parse numbers for now. And we are not going to worry about formulas. So from there, we're going to go ahead and we're going to update that file. Let's do this. So here, are you still, so when you create this file here, your Excel file, are you at your update file, are you saying it's XLS or CSV?
It is CSV.
Okay, we'll go ahead and we'll switch that over to CSV. Again, so I think we're going to run into an order of operations error, but let's see what happens. So we are not going to ignore the first line because we only have one first line. Our input here is going to actually just be that create new Excel file. We are not going to skip any blank lines. And our type is going to be, what do you have here, right? So, because you said you created an Excel file. So do you have this to say XLS or?
CSV.
Okay, so this says CSV as well.
And the reason for that is that if even though I'm creating the Excel file as a CSV file, it's still when I was going to download it, it was always downloading XLS. It would only work if I added the convert Excel to CSV stuff.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
Let's do this here. So this will be our convert Excel to CSV output. So now we have everything is mapped, and let's go ahead and just kind of fire away. Now I don't have, let's see here. Should be able to just go ahead and run. Let's see. Okay, so I have my download, I have my test file. Okay, so you can see here, right, that is this what you're seeing as well? That you have a .xlsx.csv?
That's exactly what I'm seeing.
Gotcha. Okay, so here's our issue, is that when we create an Excel file, it's giving the file extension as part of that file, and then here, and then when you get to this conversion step, it's basically taking the file. It's saying that the file name is included in that. It's basically including the file extension into that file name.
Okay.
And then from there, it's basically just getting appended together, right? So now we have a .xlsx.csv file. And then we certainly don't want that. So what I'm interested in trying.
So actually, that was working for us. I mean, it was creating a CSV file. Having the XLSX.csv doesn't hurt. It's still a CSV file.
I mean, yeah. So I mean, I do hate it though. If I can,
Yeah. So when you open that file, is there anything in it?
yeah.
No. Okay.
So let's do this. So if we're looking at your process, I believe we have the right order for your set values in row 1. Are you specifying worksheet numbers or are you leaving those blank?
I have worksheet number 0.
Okay. So let's see if I do this for worksheet number 0. And then do you have any sheet names specified here?
Only one called data.
Okay. So we have a data sheet name for our create new access, but then we're setting files against the 0, 1. I'm wondering, this might be the first number here might be 1, but we'll go ahead and confirm that. So that's, I believe, the last mention. And then do you have your ignore first line?
Ignore first line is blank or false.
Perfect. Okay. Yep. False. Let's go
Okay.
ahead and try this again. Nope. So I still have my values here. So that worked, at least in version 7. So what I would like to do, and what we could, maybe the next step forward here is, I don't know if you put in a support ticket, but we could help you put in a support ticket. So it might actually just be a bug in version 6 that we can look at,
Okay.
because it looks like what we recreated here is a pretty good representation of what you're working with.
It is.
And so far, I've been successful. Now, for your, let's see here, for your values in row 1, I'm guessing that you're not just submitting them like a constant string here. What kind of logic do you have to build this array?
Oh, it's a list of string like you did.
Gotcha.
I
Okay.
just have real names.
Yeah. So yeah, it does sound like there might be a bug that we need to look through. If everything else matches, we can take one more look through it. But based off of what you described, I think we have a pretty accurate representation of the process that you've built out. And so far, both of my files, even though I don't like the extension, both files do in fact work.
Yeah. So what I'm actually seeing is, if you debug that, are you seeing what are you seeing for inputs and outputs on the convert to CSV stuff?
So for inputs, we have the file type XLSX. We're converting to CSV, and then we do have a length as far as our contents go.
Yeah, so I think that's where the problem might lie, because on mine, I'm seeing the same thing from the input. Exactly. The number's a little different. Mine's 6190. But on the output, I get a CSV file with length of 0.
You know what? So I think I have a potentially meaningful idea. Do you have your flow open now? It sounds like.
Yeah.
If you go to your step information, let's start here with the create new Excel file. And if we go to our step information, what is your flow step type?
It is create new Excel file.
And then your toolbox name is still create new Excel file.
Yes.
And then I have to ask this, unfortunately, can we kind of quickly compare our flow step IDs?
Those are different.
Just kind of the same.
They're different.
They are different.
Mine starts with 11012.
Fantastic. All right. So I think, based off what I'm hearing, is that when we updated from 5 to 6, it looks like some components about these steps were changed. Even if the inputs and outputs look the same to us, it looks like the code behind the step was updated. And so what I would want to do, and we would want to go through and do it for all these steps. But quite honestly, what we would want to do is we would want to go to our steps catalog here and go ahead and find, our create new Excel. And then here, and we're going to basically recreate the flow, but built in version 6 using version 6 steps. Because I don't think it's a problem with your logic. I think that some of the back end parts of the steps were changed between your upgrades.
Yeah, let's give it a shot. So I'll drag,
Yeah.
I'll find and drag a new create new Excel file step.
Yeah, and honestly, I mean, we should do it for all steps.
Oh, so wait, the, so is that flow step ID, is that a GUID that represents the step ID, or is it the step in this flow?
So the flow step toolbox name, that's going to be your unique name. The flow step ID, this should be able to change. Yeah. But based, like, this is just the idea that I'm having based off things I've seen in the past.
Okay,
Right. So here you can see that the flow steps IDs are different despite them being the same step. Yeah, I didn't mean to make you think that that was the exact difference I was looking for. But I have seen it where the step names themselves are slightly different between upgrades, and that can cause issues sometimes.
okay.
So I still think it would be worth your time to kind of swap out those steps. And if that doesn't work, let's go ahead and submit a support ticket for it.
Okay. I'll give that a shot.
Great.
That's all I got. Thanks.
Yeah, no problem. And I believe that that covers us for all of our questions today, Sabrina. I think we made it through it. So I don't know, Jeff, do you think that, are you going to make those changes now? Is it worth us staying on the call, or is this something you're going to touch back base with us later?
I'll touch base with you.
Great. All right. Well, on behalf of Decisions, thanks for attending today, everybody. And we will see you all next week. Thanks for stopping by.